Today, let's talk about the two most capable surface combatants operating anywhere in the world right now, and why their direct comparison reveals something profound about the future of naval warfare in the Pacific. The Chinese Type 055 Renhai-class and the American Arleigh Burke-class represent fundamentally different answers to the same strategic question, and understanding the gap between them and where that gap might be closing matters more now than at any point since the Cold War. For decades, the United States Navy operated with absolute maritime supremacy. The Arleigh Burke-class, first commissioned on July 4, 1991, became the backbone of American sea power, a workhorse destroyer built around the revolutionary Aegis combat system that had previously been reserved only for larger cruisers. With 74 active hulls today, it remains the most numerous surface combatant class in any Western Navy. The People's Liberation Army Navy, by contrast, spent those same decades struggling to field anything approaching a modern blue water destroyer. China first pursued a large destroyer under the Type 055 program designation back in 1976, but canceled it in 1983 because domestic industry simply could not produce the necessary gas turbine propulsion systems. The inflection point came in the 2000s. As Chinese naval technology matured and economic resources expanded dramatically, Beijing revived the program. A full-scale mock-up of the superstructure appeared at the Wuhan Electronic Testing Range in April 2014. Construction of the lead ship began at Jiangnan Shipyard in Shanghai in late 2014. On January 12, 2020, the destroyer Nanchang commissioned at Qingdao Naval Base, becoming the largest surface combatant launched in East Asia since World War II. Which brings us to the question everyone in defense analysis is now asking. What happens when these two ships, representing two different eras and two different philosophies, are measured against each other? The comparison between Type 055 and Arleigh Burke is no longer theoretical. In December 2025, Chinese state media broadcast footage of the Type 055 destroyer Wuxi conducting a finalization test of the YJ-20 hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile, successfully striking a maritime target at sea. This represents the first publicly confirmed operational deployment of a ship-launched hypersonic weapon from a surface combatant, a capability category that no Western destroyer currently possesses. Meanwhile, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers have been fighting the most intensive naval engagements since World War II in the Red Sea. USS Carney alone conducted 51 separate engagements over a 6-month deployment against Houthi missiles and drones. These are no longer paper comparisons. Both ship classes are demonstrating what they can actually do in conditions approaching combat. For China, the decision to build the Type 055 as their premier surface combatant is justified by three factors that directly address perceived American naval advantages. The first factor is raw firepower density. The Type 055 carries 112 vertical launch system cells in a universal launcher design compared to 96 cells on the Arleigh Burke Flight 2A and Flight 3 variants. More importantly, those Chinese cells are significantly larger, measuring up to 9 meters long and 0.85 meters in diameter. This size differential matters enormously because it allows the Type 055 to accommodate weapons that simply cannot fit in the American Mark 41 VLS, including the YJ-21 and YJ-20 hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missiles. These weapons travel at Mach 6 during the cruise phase and accelerate to Mach 10 at terminal approach, with estimated ranges between 1,000 and 1,500 kilometers. The Arleigh Burke has no equivalent weapon and limited defensive options against such an attack profile. The second factor is sensor integration through stealth-optimized design. The Type 055 integrates all major sensors into a single enclosed mast, achieving what the U.S. Naval War College described as a level of integration not achieved for the Burke 3 due to cost considerations. The ship carries a Type 346B Dragoneye S-band active electronically scanned array radar with 4 fixed panels, roughly 40% larger than those on the predecessor Type 052D class. Critically, it also integrates 4 X-band AESA panels, making it the People's Liberation Army Navy's first warship with dual-band radar coverage. This approach mirrors the original SPY-3 and SPY-4 concept that the U.S. Navy planned for the Zumwalt class but abandoned as too expensive. The third factor is displacement and endurance for extended operations. At 12,000 to 13,000 tons full load displacement, the Type 055 exceeds even the American Ticonderoga-class cruisers at roughly 9,600 tons. The larger hull permits greater fuel capacity, more comfortable crew accommodations for extended deployments, and reserves for future weapons systems including directed energy weapons. We will get into the propulsion specifications and what they enable later in this analysis. The transition here matters. These advantages are real, but they tell only part of the story. What the Type 055 offers on paper and what it can deliver in actual combat operations remain very different questions. And China is not the only one paying attention to this comparison. Defense establishments across the Indo-Pacific are watching closely, and their conclusions are shaping procurement decisions worth tens of billions of dollars. Japan has responded with the Maya-class destroyer, an Aegis-equipped ship displacing 10,250 tons with ballistic missile defense capability. Tokyo's calculation is straightforward. Even if the Type 055 carries more missiles, Japanese ships operating within American network architecture gain access to sensor data and targeting information that Chinese vessels operating independently cannot match. The cooperative engagement capability linking Japanese and American Aegis ships creates a combined picture that is greater than the sum of its parts. South Korea has taken a different approach entirely. The Sejong the Great-class, their KDX-3 destroyer program, actually exceeds both the Type 055 and the Arleigh Burke in one critical metric: vertical launch capacity. With 11,000 tons displacement, it carries 128 vertical launch system cells, the highest count among any comparable surface combatant. Seoul's calculation reflects the unique threat environment of the Korean peninsula, where the density of North Korean missile threats justifies the maximum possible defensive loadout. But perhaps the most interesting response comes from the United States itself. I will not speculate on internal Pentagon deliberations, but I will say this. The Navy's decision to extend the service lives of 12 Flight 1 Arleigh Burke destroyers in October 2024, combined with continued delays to the DDGX next-generation destroyer program, suggests a recognition that the gap with Chinese surface combatants is more concerning than public statements acknowledge. The DDGX, which would finally give the United States Navy a ship in the same displacement and capability class as the Type 055, is not scheduled for construction until fiscal year 2032, at an estimated cost of $3.3 to $4.4 billion per hull, roughly 3 to 4 times what China reportedly pays for each Type 055. As a side note, the cost disparity reveals something important about the strategic competition beyond shipbuilding. American labor costs, regulatory requirements, and industrial base constraints mean that even when the United States designs a ship to match Chinese capabilities, it costs dramatically more and takes significantly longer to field. This is not a criticism of American engineering. It is simply a fact about comparative production economics that shapes what each Navy can realistically build in the relevant time frame. To understand why these two destroyers turned out so differently, we need to go back to the beginning, back to why each Navy built them in the first place. The Arleigh Burke-class emerged from a specific problem. The Royal Navy's experience in the Falklands War made that problem painfully clear. In 1982, British ships with aluminum superstructures proved fatally vulnerable to missile impacts, with fires spreading rapidly through lightweight structures. American naval architects took note. The Burke program, which received its contract award on April 2, 1985, returned to all-steel construction and was designed from the outset around the Aegis combat system, the most sophisticated air defense architecture in the world at that time. The core mission was defending carrier battle groups against Soviet anti-ship missile swarms. Everything else was secondary. The Type 055 emerged from a different problem. China lacked any surface combatant capable of serving as a fleet AIR defense command node for carrier operations. The Liaoning and Shandong carrier groups needed an escort ship that could coordinate air defense across the entire battle group, something only the Aegis-equipped American cruisers and destroyers could previously do. China needed, in essence, its own Ticonderoga-class, but wanted it to be better, more modern, more heavily armed, and designed with stealth principles that the 1980s American ships could not incorporate. These different origin requirements explain why the ships look and perform differently. The Burke was optimized to defend American carriers against an air threat. The Type 055 was designed to both defend Chinese carriers and project offensive power against the American carriers threatening them. The same ship cannot optimize for both roles equally. With that context established, let us examine what each ship can actually do across the key capability categories. This is where the Type 055 holds its clearest advantage. Retired U.S. Navy Captain Chris Carlson, in an assessment for Business Insider in January 2025, called the Type 055 the most capable in anti-surface warfare. The YJ-18A anti-ship cruise missile provides a conventional capability with a subsonic cruise phase and a Mach 3 supersonic terminal sprint, making intercept extremely difficult. But the true differentiator is the YJ-21 and YJ-20 family of hypersonic weapons. Traveling at Mach 6 in cruise and Mach 10 at terminal approach, with engagement ranges of 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers, these weapons represent a category that the Arleigh Burke simply cannot match. The Burke historically relied on the aging Harpoon missile with a range of 120 kilometers, though newer ships are receiving the long-range anti-ship missile and the Naval Strike Missile as upgrades. The Tomahawk Block 5A also adds anti-ship capability, but none of these approach the speed or range of the Chinese hypersonic options. Here the picture reverses. Captain Carlson assessed the Type 055 as not as capable in the air defense and ballistic missile defense role as an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. The Arleigh Burke's Aegis system has been continuously refined for over 30 years, with software development representing an enormous accumulated investment in capability. The SM-3 interceptor provides proven exo-atmospheric intercept capability used in combat against Iranian ballistic missiles targeting Israel in April 2024 and October 2024. The SM-6 Extended Range Active Missile enables over-the-horizon air defense and terminal phase ballistic missile defense. Critically, the evolved Sea Sparrow missile is quad-packable, meaning 4 can fit in a single vertical launch system cell, effectively giving the Burke up to 384 short-range surface-to-air missile equivalents from its 96 cells. The Type 055's HHQ-9B provides capable long-range area air defense with an estimated 200-kilometer range, but China currently lacks a proven ballistic missile defense interceptor for shipboard use. The HQ-19 is planned as a future addition, but remains in development. The Flight 3 Arleigh Burke adds the AN/SPI-6 air and missile defense radar, a gallium nitride AESA system with, according to Raytheon, over 30 times more sensitivity than the legacy SPI-1D. This represents a generational leap in detection capability, particularly against low observable threats and ballistic missile warheads. Both ships carry broadly comparable anti-submarine warfare sensor suites, hull-mounted bow sonar, towed array sonar, and variable depth sonar systems. The Burke uses the AN/SQS-53C hull sonar integrated through the AN/SQQ-89 anti-submarine warfare combat system, with the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter providing the primary offensive anti-submarine warfare capability. Western analysts generally consider American anti-submarine warfare technology more mature, though the Type 055's sonar suite represents a significant step forward for the PLAN. Captain Carlson assessed anti-submarine warfare capabilities as about the same between the two ships. The Type 055's propulsion system generates roughly 112 megawatts from 4 QC-280 gas turbines, about 43% more power than the Burke's 4 General Electric LM2500 turbines, which produce 78 megawatts. Both ships achieve more than 30 knots maximum speed, but the Type 055's larger power plant and hull provide roughly 5,000 nautical miles of range at 18 knots, compared to the Burke's 4,400 nautical miles at 20 knots. This endurance advantage matters for sustained operations far from Chinese ports. Arguably, the most distinctive element of the Type 055 is its stealth optimization. The enclosed forecastle, continuous amidship structure, integrated sensor mast, and infrared suppressing exhaust design give the Type 055 significantly lower radar and thermal observability than the Burke. The American ship's 1980s-era hull form, with exposed antennae and equipment, was designed before stealth was a primary consideration. The Flight 3 upgrades add SPY-6 radar, but they do not fundamentally alter the ship's radar cross-section. The The U.S. Naval War College noted this stealth integration as something the Burke 3 could not achieve due to cost considerations, making it one of the clearest examples of how starting with a clean sheet design provided China advantages that upgrades to existing platforms cannot replicate. And yet, one factor cannot be measured in specifications at all. The Arleigh Burke-class has accumulated combat experience that no Chinese warship can match. During from 2023 to 2025 Red Sea operations, Burke-class destroyers conducted the most intensive naval engagements since World War II. USS Carney fought a 10-hour battle on October 19, 2023, shooting down 15 drones and 4 cruise missiles. USS Gravely shot down a Houthi anti-ship cruise missile at just 1 mile using its Phalanx close-in weapon system, the closest such engagement ever reported. USS Arleigh Burke and USS Cole fired SM-3 interceptors in combat against Iranian ballistic missiles. 7 warships received combat action ribbons. The Navy expended close to $2 billion in ordnance in 2024 alone. The Type 055 has 0 combat engagements. Its missiles and sensors remain untested in actual warfare. As the U.S. Naval War College assessment noted, the quality of China's shipbuilding remains unproven, including the level of integration between their ships' sensors and weapons, the reliability of the missiles, and these missiles' overall performance abilities. So when you combine the Type 055's greater displacement, its 112-cell vertical launch system, its hypersonic anti-ship capability, its dual-band radar integration, and its stealth-optimized design against the Arleigh Burke's 3 decades of Aegis refinement, its proven ballistic missile defense interceptors, its quad-packable short-range missiles, and its irreplaceable real-world combat validation, you arrive at a more nuanced conclusion than the simple question of who wins would suggest. The Type 055 is not simply a Chinese copy of an American destroyer. It is not trying to be an Arleigh Burke. It is something genuinely different, a fleet air defense command ship optimized to protect Chinese carrier groups while simultaneously threatening American ones with weapons the U.S. Navy cannot currently match or easily defend against. The Burke, meanwhile, is not a legacy system rendered obsolete. It is arguably the most combat-proven surface combatant operating anywhere today, backed by software and integration advantages that decades of operational experience have produced. Neither ship is categorically superior. The Type 055 likely wins in anti-surface warfare and stealth. The Burke wins in air and missile defense, anti-submarine warfare maturity, and the incalculable advantage of being the only one that has actually been shot at and shot back. That asymmetry, that difference in strengths rather than overall superiority, is exactly why every serious naval power in the Indo-Pacific is watching this comparison so closely. The future of the Pacific will be shaped by how these capabilities interact when the stakes are real.